What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Weber here with the second episode of Sweet EMohoTions. Today we're going to start out with a little bit of crashing. See, I built this big ship. I wanted it to go out to Moho. And a big problem, you can see it just seems to be randomly falling apart. And I couldn't exactly figure out what the heck was going on. I think the reason why was it was bad karma from telling you guys a little bit of wrong information last time. So let me just clarify. I'm probably not going to get everything right. I am not a frickin' space genius like one Mr. Scott Manley. I am a space enthusiast, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to know everything. However, if I'm not sure about something, I will look it up after the episode, and in the next episode, you can see where I'm making amends for all the mistakes that I tell you. Now, so after all those crashes, I decided, maybe having a ship all in just one piece, it wasn't going to work out so well for me. So I decided, well, guess what? I'm going to separate it all. And I know I said this time we're going to be talking about going for getting some people, some little Kerbals on Moho, but I decided first thing I really want to do is send a probe so we can land on the surface of Moho. I want to land up on the northern pole of Moho, mostly because I don't really think it's realistic to land a Kerbal somewhere where they're going to be in direct sunlight all the time. But the pole seems like pretty perfect, because on one side of Moho, it's freezing cold, absolutely freezing cold, just like Mercury. On the side that's tidally locked with the sun, that's going to be blistering heat. So if we get it right up on the pole, then we should have a pretty good time up there. Also, it should be quite a bit easier because it doesn't rotate that much. So basically what we need is a probe in order to go sort of scout things out up there and find us a good landing spot. Now here's my first attempt at bringing basically the center stage of our craft. And this part, I'm thinking, yeah, it's going pretty well. I'm coming up pretty good. And it crashes. And, I had a couple more crashes here with the same stage. And what I ended up realizing was my thrust to weight ratio on the thing was kind of way too high. So if I just scaled back my throttle a little bit, it would go up pretty easily. And I was able to get the thing nicely in orbit. So I want to make a little bit of a correction here today. I called it the KSP Mapsat, and that thing is actually called the ISA Mapsat. And that was actually the source of a little bit of a headache for me. See, every time I took off, I'd say at about, I think it was 60 kilometers, my computer would just lag like right down to an unplayable level. So I went on the forums and realized that if ISA Mapsat is turned on while you are at launching your ship, that it can definitely cause quite a bit of lag. It's a bug when you reach about 60 kilometers. So if any of you out there are going to be using the ISA Mapsat, I would suggest that you turn it off when you launch. So now that we got that up in orbit, we're coming in here, and I decided the next thing I'm going to do is build essentially a constructor ship. And this ship's going to be the thing that it's completely full of RCS, and basically you see I'm putting these reaction wheels all around it here so it can turn really fast. I wanted a hot rod in space that was also a tractor. So this is going to be the result of my wanting a tractor hot rod. And I'll put that thing up there, and it'll be able to tug around any fuel tanks that I want to attach to my main body of my Moho transfer ship. And the Moho transfer ship I designed, it's quite possible that it'll be actually able to make it back to Kerbal. But I have an idea is I sort of want to keep it around Moho because, you know, it's going to make a good fuel station. If I send Kerbals to Moho, you know, if they get there and they don't have enough fuel to get back, well, then I'm going to have to send some sort of mission out to Moho, you know, to rescue, and that'll just leave them there that much longer. And let's say if Kerbals ate, you know, they'd starve to death before we got anything there. If anything, they'd probably kill each other from boredom. So I'm thinking I'll have quite a bit of fuel left in that thing. So when it gets to Moho, we'll check the fuel, and we might actually be able to give ourselves just enough fuel to get to Moho in our transfer ship and make a really small transfer ship that'll just get the crew back to Kerbal, that we would be able to fuel up once we get to Moho and bring it back to Kerbal. I don't know. We'll see what happens when I start designing our craft to get there. So right now what we're doing is we're just we're pulling up to the central craft so we can dock this we can dock this constructor craft with it. And so it's a pretty standard docking maneuver. I'm first, you know, we need to rendezvous and then do docking. And here's something that's really cool. You're going to see it in just a second. See, when they first added docking to KSP, man, you know, I kind of felt like an idiot. And I know a lot of you out there, I've seen you guys on Reddit, you know, people they're pretty proud when they do, you know, like, oh, my first docking. Because docking, let's face it, without really proper instruments, docking is really, really hard. And, you know, I've been playing this game, since a long, I think I started, you know, point 10. I'm not really sure. I started a long time ago. You know, and I sort of felt stupid that I couldn't do docking. Also, it could be because I'm just a little bit impatient. But if you see here, this is see the docking alignment, and this is Navyfish's docking port alignment indicator. And you can get that on the spaceport. I know Scott Manley just rave reviews about it, and that's where I heard it from, was watching Scott Manley's channel. This thing makes you dock like a pro. I no longer loathe docking. And so when I have something like this, it's got 3 docking ports that need to come together like perfectly. Absolutely. If one of them is off, it ruins the whole thing. The ship won't fly at all. I mean, the thing's going to fall apart, move sideways. It's not going to do it, you know. But now that I have the docking alignment indicator, way easier. Now I'm going to actually switch gears here. This thing, we'll be able to watch it docking with my central ship. You know, last episode, I made a few comments about collision craft, and I said that I said, I know. Yeah, shows how much I know. I said I know they collided with Europa, but, you know, what I know and what is, it usually, sometimes the two don't quite align. There's actually never been a collision on Europa. I was thinking about a proposal I had read for a ship that would collide with it and essentially collect data. But there was a project called Deep Impact. It's No, it's not that mediocre movie about the comet colliding with Earth. I believe that was Morgan Freeman. It was actually a pretty cool experiment about with a Earth object colliding with a comet. And you can see here, just to switch back to what I'm doing, I noticed that my construction ship, it was in the way for this docking. So I had to, undock that, eject it off, and then I'm just going to bring it around here and dock it to the side to keep it good. So just back to Deep Impact, it was really cool. They crashed a piece of a ship that they flew out to Comet 9P Temple. And essentially, they just flew through and checked out what was inside, and it actually was somewhat surprising for scientists because there was a lot less ice than they thought there would be in a comet. Now here you see our probe. I'm just this is the probe that we're going to fly to Moho. It's actually pretty big. It's not as big as the ship that we're going to send the Kerbals in, but it is a sizable probe. Because one of the things I want to do is test out the gravity on Moho. Now, we could, check that on the wiki or something, but I sort of want to do the science myself. So, back to collisions. Here's another interesting snippet of info. There was a project called L-Cross, and that one, another collision, it slammed into the moon in 2009 to see if the moon had any water in it. And they did find water, which actually makes scientists way more interested in establishing a moon base, because who really wants to go to the moon if there's no water there? I mean, you'd have to bring it up all the time. If there's water on the moon, pretty easy to stay up there. Because, as you know, we humans, we need our water. There was another collision thing. I thought this was really cool. I wanted to tell you guys about it. It's called Project A19, and those of you who know about it are kind of probably laughing right now. It was a really cool but terrible idea to nuke the moon. That's right. You heard that right. To detonate a nuclear bomb on the moon. Now, now there's several space treaties and stuff like that. It is illegal to put nuclear weapons in space, actually, which I don't know. If you wanted to put a nuclear weapon in space, who was going to arrest you, right? But, right now it is illegal to put nuclear weapons in space, and they realized how terrible an idea it would be to nuke the moon. So you can rest easy. The moon is safe from nuking. And the mission that I was thinking that they were doing on the moon, I said I think they're doing a mission right now where they're colliding. They're actually not colliding with it. It's called LADY, the Lunar Atmosphere and Dust Environment Explorer, because, NASA loves their acronyms. LADY launched earlier this month, actually. And it's going to explore the lunar atmosphere. It's going to fly in really low and collect stuff from the lunar atmosphere to find out more about the atmosphere of our moon. And yes, our moon, it has a faint, but it does have an atmosphere. And they actually talked about the atmosphere is a little bit stronger now because of the rockets that went to the moon, which is really interesting. So that's actually something to keep up with. LADY is going to get to the moon October 6th, and it's going to collect probably quite a bit of information, and then they usually end up crashing those things into the moon after they're done. I don't know why. Probably they don't want any Kessler syndrome going around. Kessler syndrome, in case you don't know, is a really scary idea that our space is going to get full of junk and essentially make it impossible for us to go there, which would suck because I really want to go to space. I say I want to be able to go to the moon before I die. I don't think that's too unreasonable a thing to ask. Just someone take me to the moon, fly me to the moon, and let me play among the stars, as the song might say. So here we are. We dropped off our piece, and we're moving our probe over, and I just, I strapped it to this little rocket here that's going to help us rendezvous, because with those fuel tanks, they were really quite heavy, so I decided to do it all with RCS. Oh man, RCS is not the most fun thing to do when you're doing orbital rendezvous maneuvers. It kind of sucks. So here we are, we're doing our orbital rendezvous maneuvers, and essentially, I don't know if I'm sure you probably know a little bit about it. There's several tutorials out there. Essentially, what you do is get yourself as close as you can, and then you do what I believe is called, and I can look this up, but I believe it's called washing your orbit. And it's washing your orbit. It's called washing in some way, and it's essentially you burn back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, which, wax on, wax off, until you get close enough to dock. So it makes it way easier with the rockets, because essentially what I did is I got to a point where, I was doing the washing, and I'm like, 4 kilometers away, that's not that bad. I'm just going to suicide burn this thing. And, suicide burn, that's pretty much, you point straight at it, you launch at it as quickly as you can. So you can see I've moved down to 1 kilometer, and then you just get as close as you can, put on the brakes, and stop right there. So here we are moving in, coming in right next to the center probe holder transfer stage. And this transfer stage, it's going to take this thing's a beast. I mean, it is a whale of a machine. It is going to take forever to burn out. I'm not going to show you guys that, but I suspect that I will probably just end up walking away from my computer. I'll have Mechjeb handle the burn and everything, but I'll probably end up just walking away from my computer for an hour just to let the thing burn. And that won't even be the whole thing. And on top of that, there's no fuel balancing for these things, since I attach them separately. So that's going to be really fun. I suppose I could probably find a fuel balancing mod, but that's it. So here we are, completing the construction. This is completed, and I know we didn't really use that constructor ship. I thought it was going to be a lot more useful than it really was. And it ended up being pretty useful. See, I ended up using it here. You can see I'm replenishing all my RCS. And off camera, I replenished all the RCS on the rest of the transfer stage. So, if anything, it was a good little gas station. So now we'll just deorbit this thing. And I want to bring it into the water because I don't know anything about Kerbals. I don't know anything about Kerbals. I don't see any cities, but I assume they're probably something like hobbits, where their houses are really close to the surface. So it would be really unfortunate if this thing came down on some unsuspecting Kerbal home. So we're just going to watch this thing come in, burn into the atmosphere, see those beautiful re-entry effects, crash into the ocean, and that's the end of the episode. I'm Weber, and as always, keep entertained.